it is my pleasure to really introduce the experts that will help us with the Hydrogen Valley facility for the next 4 and even 5 years, if necessary. And I would like to ask to come to join me on stage. And I don't know who, Markus and Christopher, right? So Markus Kaufmann and Christopher Schmitt. Again, apologies if I don't pronounce well your names.
Perfect.
Okay, excellent, I did it. So please join me on stage. Like I said, it's my pleasure to introduce them to you. They have supported the joint undertaking with several projects in the past. We like to call them experts in the field, even more experts than we are. I never claim myself being an expert, by the way. They will introduce to you to the Valley facility. It is a pleasure that we managed to sign it. It took us some time, but you know, tendering procedures never easy from public funds. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Thanks.
And amaze us, please.
Yeah,
You'll do
our best with the last thing in between everyone and drinks,
and
I understand.
Drink, yeah, exactly.
So
thank you.
Will be long and boring and no, all kidding aside, we hope this is not too dry, but a bit exciting. So very briefly, we're Christopher and Markus, partners at Roland Berger, based in Hamburg and Stuttgart, Germany. We're part of a larger team of RB that's here today, led by Uwe. Franziska is here, Anna, Martin, Johannes. Lots of people, because we have a big challenge and a big task ahead of us, which is to help the Clean Hydrogen Partnership implement this thing called the Hydrogen Valleys facility. We want to cover two parts today. I'm going to talk a little bit about why we think we're here and who we are and the consortium that we have built to deliver this contract. And then Christopher is going to walk through the basic tenets of the facility and what we have in mind for the next couple of years. Full disclaimer, this is not an info day officially for anything. We're in the first 4 weeks of working with the Clean Hydrogen Partnership to figure it all out. But this is sort of, to say, the initial preview of what we plan. And that said, this actually works. So Mirela really covered all the history already, so I'm going to keep it brief. We as RB have been involved in the Hydrogen Valley journey since 2019. We had been involved in the Regions and Cities initiatives from 17 through 19 as well, but in 2019 we sort of became involved with the concept in the sense that we started to talk with Mirela and her team about how to facilitate peer-to-peer exchanges really between different Hydrogen Valley developers, and that's when the idea of a global Hydrogen Valley platform was born. It's accessible today online under h2v.eu, and the idea, as Mirela also mentioned, was to, let's say, allow the rest of the world also to benefit from the concept and the early successes of Hydrogen Valleys in Europe. So it's, when you check out the platform today, you see it's more than 2/3 of valleys that are European, but there are integrated clean hydrogen projects and ecosystem clusters, hubs in other parts of the world, and it's proven to be really catchy, actually, and it's caught on in lots of places, and that's really nice to see. We then had a second contract with the JU to expand the platform, extend it, and the next step is now to sort of return the focus on Europe a bit and help the joint undertaking and ultimately the Commission and the EU at large to achieve the Hydrogen Valley related objectives for this decade, which are still very ambitious. Now, what we always wanted to make sure in the past and still want to make sure now is that what we do here together with the joint undertaking really helps the project developers out there that are faced with real challenges and hurdles in terms of advancing projects, right? So we always, Christopher and I always like to joke, we don't want to make this a an overly academic exercise that only people can come up with that don't really know the realities of what it means to develop a project. And that's why we agreed with Mirela and her team. We need to actually start by first understanding to the best way we can what project developers actually need in terms of support. Yeah, so we found out we saw it on the slide of Mirela, when you check out the platform today, more than 3/4 of the valleys have yet to take a final investment decision. So it's a super early stage market and sector still. And what's really holding projects back? What's really needed to get to FID? And that's why in the last couple of weeks, we did a dedicated survey. We reached out to over 100 project developers in Europe. We're very happy that more than 50 of them filled out our survey, and we were wondering, okay, we basically asked pretty straightforward, how can we help? And what does the facility need to do, or what should the facility be able to do in order to help as many hydrogen valleys as possible get to a final investment decision? And I want to share a couple of results of the survey, maybe to give you a couple of hard facts. More than half of the valleys plan to invest more than 100 million euros in CapEx. And roughly, I think 40% have already taken a final investment decision of the sample that we had, and 60%, give or take, have yet to take a final investment decision. And we also ask a little bit about the sentiment, and unsurprisingly, we had quite a few valleys who quite openly said, I think around 40% of them, the current sentiment, the current demand for clean hydrogen solution is a bit weaker, is more challenging than it used to be. So, as we all read in the news, this is a somewhat challenging time for the sector as a whole, and finding solutions that are investable, that are commercial, is probably more challenging than it ever was. Yeah, there's also more experience that we've ever had, I think, but it's not a time where everything is a walk in the park, yeah, for projects like these. So what did the survey yield? We asked, okay, which specific support areas are you looking for, and what could the facility do? We sort of asked. We clustered the needs into 4 categories: commercial topics, regulatory and more sort of policy-related topics, technical topics, and anything and everything related to how to run and manage a hydrogen valley. And unsurprisingly, I think Valerie made that point earlier, it's about offtake, and then also about offtake. So the key result was valleys need help in figuring out an offtake strategy, a viable path to firm and bankable demand, clean hydrogen consumption that can be translated into a commercial structure, into contracts, etc., that allow for the de-risking of projects and actual investment decisions to be taken. So this is going to be clearly a key focus area of our work, especially in the project development assistance that Christopher will talk about. On the regulatory and policy-related side, permitting is an issue. I'm always surprised that in principle, when you read the German permitting laws for how to get an electrolyzer built, on paper it says it shouldn't take longer than 6 months to get a permit. In reality, it takes way longer. We know that in Europe it can still take 1.5 to 2.5 years to get a refueling station permitted. That is, you could say, not great, but it's a real challenge, and it's also something that, of course, it's where we're going to have to see in the facility on how you can really help projects on the one hand, because permitting is something very national and regional, sometimes local and municipal, but at the same time allow the facility to be beneficial to everyone, and we make use of lessons learned across the board. So permitting is an issue. Clearly, CapEx and OpEx analysis, yeah, it's very clear from the respondents of the survey. Pretty much everyone in the sector saw their calculated levelized cost of hydrogen go up in the last 2 and 3 years, not down. That's a reality that we will have to face, and how to optimize CapEx and OpEx for the valley as a whole. And last but not least, I think we also shouldn't underestimate, and I think we have plenty of people here in the room to speak to that, that it's complex and challenging to manage up to 2 dozens of partners sometimes in a hydrogen valley just to get moving together. So it's those issues that we'll have to address, and we look forward to somehow shaping that into a service offering, and a facility portfolio that is attractive for as many projects as possible. We also asked sort of how project developers would like to see this support materialize. It's about really ready-to-use tools and templates, guidelines on the latest industry standards, so also pooling together know-how that's accessible, best practice sharing, basically anything and everything that such a facility can offer in terms of disseminating knowledge, peer-to-peer exchanges, but in the end also, of course, custom support to individual projects that Christopher will talk about in the PDA in a more narrow sense. So the facility, as I mentioned earlier, the facility ultimately aims to help the EU achieve its very aspirational target of 50 hydrogen valleys to be either under construction or ideally already operational by the end of the decade. I think in operational right now we're still at less than half a dozen, so it's some way to go. More in construction, more post FID. But the decade is not that many years long anymore, so it's a pretty big job to do. The facility is divided up in 3 areas. Really, one is about project development assistance. The second is really about sharing knowledge and facilitating exchanges between projects, and the third is to maintain and expand and further enhance the global Hydrogen Valley platform that's been online now for almost 5 years. Roland Berger has teamed up with 2 partners for this exercise that was selected under the public procurement contract by the joint undertaking that Mirela mentioned, and that's Worley as probably the leading engineering house in the clean hydrogen space, and by our dear partners at Inicom from Spain, who have been with us now for 6 years and have developed the platform online and provide all the technical solutions also to process the different applications that we're going to have, hopefully very many of for the PDA services. So just a few words on the consortium. I promise to keep this extremely brief because we are already standing here. We at RB really like to say that hydrogen is a cornerstone of our work on climate action, clean technologies, and sustainability. Christopher and I are part of a team that is really managing our services in this space globally. We have developed close to 300, I think by now, projects in the last 5 years, working across the entire value chain and the emerging sector. And we have a particular focus on helping clean hydrogen projects in their really day-to-day development work and progress towards FID. And we are very happy that we could leverage that experience in now being able to put this facility into motion and bring it to life. Yeah, I'd like to ask Nicola Knight very quickly on stage, because we're super happy to have someone here from Worley today to say a few words about Worley, and so you also get a feel what we can offer under the facility in terms of engineering know-how and services. Nicola.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with Roland Berger and talk to you about our capabilities. So I'm representing Worley. Worley is a global engineering contractor, headquarters in Australia, but many offices throughout Europe. And we've been working in the hydrogen space for many years now, and we really cover the full supply chain with a very deep, detailed technical knowledge. And with the team that's based in Europe, if we come across a project or a problem that we don't have experience of, we've got 50,000 engineers and scientists in the global Worley that will help us. So I'm absolutely sure whatever challenges we come up against, we'll be able to help those applying through that PDA to resolve their issues and give them the guidance that they need to get to FID. So really looking forward to the next few years working together. So thank you.
Thanks, Nicola. Thanks a lot. So our idea was really to bring the strategic and project management and commercial know-how that we as RB cover ourselves together with Worley on the technical and techno-economic side, also especially making sure that we can address the intricacies of European regulation and, for instance, on green hydrogen production and certification in the specific context of each valley. Because if there's one thing you really learn when you support not just clean hydrogen projects, but really any clean energy project, is that every project is different and requires a sort of bespoke addressing of the different needs, and that's what we stand for. And needless to say, we've done this together in the past, so this is we're excited. Yeah. And I really shouldn't forget, Inicom is the one that's going to make it all fly from a technology standpoint. So we plan to expand the Hydrogen Valley platform to set up a dedicated area for the facility as such, where we process the applications for the PDAs, where we also make the knowledge available that will be produced as part of the assistance assignments and missions, and Inicom, with its vast experience in developing such portals and platforms and maintaining them, is going to do all the magic in the back. So Markus and team, thanks a lot. Looking forward to the next 5 years. Okay, that said, this is us. We're really excited to be here. And now I'm super happy to leave the juicy part of what the facility is all about to Christopher.
Thank you, Markus. Yes, so let's have a closer look at what we are currently thinking in terms of how to outline and set up the facility that Markus already briefly introduced. As Markus already mentioned, none of this is carved in stone. We are in the inception phase of the project. We are currently aligning the details with the JU. Nevertheless, we thought it's worthwhile to use this event to provide a glimpse into what the current thinking is and a first perspective on what the Hydrogen Valley's facility is going to entail. So in essence, as already mentioned by Markus, the Valley's facility will consist of 3 main components. On the one hand, we have the project development assistance, the PDA. Then we have the H2 Valley knowledge portal, and as a third element, we have the H2 Valley platform, which is in essence the underlying technology and IT infrastructure that supports and enables the 2 other streams. Looking at the project development assistance, the PDA first, here the core idea is really to put together a support offering for hydrogen valleys out there that enables them to reach the next maturity level and move towards FID, because this is what the sector needs. We have a lot of projects that are in the relatively early development stages, and ultimately to unlock things and make things happen on the ground, we need projects that reach FID. And for that purpose, we will basically offer support in 4 areas. Those are the areas that Markus already alluded to when we were talking about the results of the survey. It will be commercial, technical, regulatory, and valley governance as the 4 main buckets into which the support offerings will fall. And of course, the target audience for this will be hydrogen valleys. That is not to say that this is only open to valleys that are already on the platform or that are already receiving support. This is an open call that will go out and address everyone that in principle meets the Hydrogen Valley criteria, which I will speak about in a minute. The second element is the H2 Valley knowledge portal. So while the PDA is really dedicated, tailor-made, customized support for individual valleys that will be selected in a process, the knowledge portal is really about providing support offerings in the sense of guidelines, templates, tools that are ready to use to a broader audience. So this will be made available publicly, and this will also entail, next to the, let's say, knowledge materials component of things, also interactive elements such as workshops, events, etc., mostly online, to make this really accessible for a broader audience out there and make sure that a lot of valley developers and also H2 project developers in a more narrow sense can tap into. And as mentioned, the Hydrogen Valley's platform that has been in place for a few years now will continue to form the backbone of these services and will be enhanced to actually enable and deliver on these 2 let's say, content-based support streams. So that's in a nutshell the structure of what we're looking at when we talk about the Hydrogen Valleys facility. And to have a closer look at what we mean by PDA for Hydrogen Valleys, just a quick recap, what do we mean when we talk about Hydrogen Valleys? So most of you know this, the key criteria that will also apply in the context of the facility now is, first of all, we're talking about clean hydrogen production, because that's the point of why we're doing this. It's all about decarbonization and making sure that we clean up the energy landscape and the industry landscape and the mobility landscape in Europe. The projects need to be relatively large in scale. We're talking double-digit million euro investments that are sort of the threshold of what defines a valley in this context. And what's also a defining feature of a valley is that we're talking about a defined geographical scope. Yeah? So this is not a random allocation of things happening all over, but there is a geographical scope that defines what constitutes a valley. It can be rather broad. It can connect multiple regions, but nevertheless there's a geographical logic to it. And we're also talking about something that does not only cover one step of the value chain, but when we talk valleys, we talk about integrated project configurations that basically cover the entire value chain from production through transportation all the way to various different end users. And what we also mean by that is that different end users should be in scope. Yeah? So if we're talking single purpose projects that only serve one particular end use in a narrow sense, that is not a valley. We're talking about an ecosystem that encompasses various end users. And we need to be able to observe some real project development activities happening. So it's not about very, very early stage things that basically are a sketch or an idea in PowerPoint. We need to have some sort of structure in terms of real project development activities happening that we can also work with in a meaningful way to make this effort of PDAs worthwhile. Now, having a closer look at what the PDA actually entails. As mentioned, the ultimate objective of why we're doing this in the first place is to help advance hydrogen valleys towards FID. And in principle, those valleys out there that meet the 6 hydrogen valley criteria that I just outlined are the target audience of this offering. And in terms of geographical scope, we're basically talking about the EU member states and the countries that are associated to Horizon Europe. So this is where the valleys that are eligible for this should be located. Now, we all know that projects are at different points on the maturity scale and on the project lifecycle, and therefore we decided that it makes sense to basically have a substructure in this PDA offering and say, okay, we have PDA Lights on the one hand and PDA Plus on the other hand. PDA Lights are basically addressing projects that are in the advanced ideation stage, and the idea is that at the end of the PDA, and based on the support that they will receive through the PDAs, they should have reached the concept stage with a clear path in place towards feasibility and ultimately FID. And this will be time-boxed, approximately 6 weeks as a support offering, very condensed but very intense to basically provide this offering to this segment of PDAs. On the other hand, we have the PDA Plus, where the idea is to start with projects that are already more mature and more advanced. The starting point for those projects is in essence the concept stage, and the idea is that we use the PDA Plus services to move those along the maturity scale towards feasibility stage. This will be an extended delivery period of 12 weeks, approximately, for the individual valleys that will receive the PDA Plus support. And compared to the PDA Lite, which will be relatively standardized, the PDA Plus will also be even more customized, more tailored, more bespoke, to really start with the to really make sure that we reflect where these projects stand and put together a support offering that really helps them rather than providing a one-size-fits-all offering, yeah? Which is also why the scoping of the concrete services in the beginning of the PDA Plus will take a little bit longer, because we really need to customize it to the individual situation of the valleys and what's really helping them. In terms of how much of this will be done, again, none of this is carved in stone, but the idea is that for the period 2025 through 2027, we will carry out up to 40 of those PDAs. The exact distribution between PDA Lite and PDA Plus yet to be determined. It's also going to be a function of the incoming applications, to be quite frank, because ultimately we're trying to maximize impact, and it really depends also on the incoming applications and where we think we can add the most value. That being said, we plan to run the first call for applications for this still this year, and the approximate goal is to have around 15 PDAs that will still be started this year, and logically we will do 15 this year. The total is about 40, so that we will proceed in waves. This is a conscious decision. One, it's of course driven by practicalities, but on the other hand, it's also due to the fact that we want to incorporate learnings. Yeah? This is something where we will run a first wave, we will collect learnings, we will collect insights, we will fine-tune and recalibrate the approach to get even better in the second and third round. So the current planning assumption and working hypothesis is that there's going to be 3 waves total over that period, 2025 through 2027. I already briefly mentioned this, we don't have to go into detail on this, but the idea is to really use the PDA Lite and PDA Plus to advance the individual projects along all 4 dimensions, so commercial, technical, regulatory, and value governance and organization. And in the case of a PDA Lite, move them from project idea and outline to a project concept that would, in technical terms, typically be associated with a FEL1, and in the case of the PDA Plus, ideally move them towards a completed feasibility phase, which would, in technical and engineering terms, be associated with a FEL2. Now, these dimensions, commercial, technical, regulatory, and value governance, of course, include various different activities and potential work packages, and the PDA cannot address all of them at the same time. So what we've done is we've basically put together a menu, of potential activities, potential work packages that can be addressed in those 4 main buckets of support. So for example, in the commercial space, putting together a renewable sourcing concept for the green hydrogen production based on own renewables assets and sourcing from the grid and combinations of those, et cetera, et cetera. It's about putting together a business plan, and it's, as mentioned several times, about putting together offtake, just to name a few examples. And on the technical side, it's about site identification, it's about plant and process design, it's about CapEx and OpEx estimates on different levels of accuracy, et cetera, et cetera. You get the drill, and it's the same for the other 2. So what we will do is at the outset of each PDA Plus actually run a baselining exercise based on data and inputs that we receive from the valleys that have been selected for a PDA Plus, based on interviews and first baselining workshops with those who run the valleys, the promoters, the developers, and the partners behind the consortia, and then basically sit down together and jointly prioritize what it is that would add the most value out of this menu for the specific valley at hand, and then basically put together a specific scope for each individual PDA Plus, which will then basically be the starting point for the actual delivery. So it's really not one size fits all, it's bespoke in the sense that we look at the starting point of the individual valleys and then take it from there. And this will then also be formalized in a joint delivery plan that will include, of course, what we as a service provider will deliver to the valleys, but it will also include the obligations of the valleys when it comes to availability for meetings, for workshops, when it comes to making data available so that we have a meaningful foundation and fact base to work with, etc., so that we really have a joint plan that everybody buys into at the outset of each PDA Plus. Now, I talked a lot about the PDAs, and that's good because those are at the heart of the facility and of the program that we've put together. But that is not to say that this is the only activity. I mentioned Initially, the second core pillar of the facility is going to be the knowledge portal that we will put together, and that will, in essence, consist of two things. On the one hand, it's knowledge materials, facts, tools, guidelines that will be made available to the broader community, basically openly accessible out there through the platform as the technical infrastructure on which this whole thing will run. But that's not the only thing. Even though this will be addressed to a broader audience and it will not be as customized, we still put a huge emphasis on also having exchange formats around this. Yeah? So having webinars, joint sessions, etc., where knowledge exchange can be facilitated beyond simply uploading documents to a platform and saying, well, help yourself. Yeah. So we will still want to have an interactive element and an element of exchange in there that will be facilitated from a technical standpoint through the platform. I already mentioned the platform. The platform itself is nothing new. It's been around for many years, as already mentioned by Mirela and also by Markus. It has, of course, evolved over time. I still want to pitch this as something that's really cool and that really makes sense for Valley developers to be on. Why? First of all, you can showcase your project, you can showcase your Valley, you make it visible to a broader audience, which might be helpful in terms of attracting both partners, but also investors. There's the element of benchmarking and learning. Yeah, there's an awful lot of data on the platform already, and this will be enhanced and enriched going forward. So there's definitely something to learn from. And there's also the element of connecting with your peers, so to speak, and having best practice exchange, learnings and collaboration with other H2 Valleys, because as we saw in the survey, you tend to run into the same issues. Yeah? The challenges can clearly be clustered, and there's absolutely no need for everyone to face those issues individually. There's a lot of use and a lot of benefit in exchanging on that. Those are the benefits in abstract terms. A very concrete reminder, we've sent around a request to those valleys that are already on the platform at the beginning of June. Many of you have already updated their data, which is great. Some haven't. So again, a very, very friendly reminder to look into that and maybe do that to stay visible and stay up to date on the platform. And if somebody happens to be on the room who basically meets the Valley criteria, considers themselves a Valley, but is not on the platform yet, an open invitation, please go to the website, click on the area where it says that you want to join the H2 Valley platform, and then we're very happy to look at this and onboard you. So please take this as an opportunity now that we're revamping the platform to keep your data up to date or get onto the platform in the first place. Now, of course, that's the platform as it stands today. Of course, it will not stay the way it is. Yeah? So as part of the H2 Valley facility engagement in the next years, we will do several things to the platforms. Some are cosmetic in the sense that we will have enhanced visualizations, we'll make the accessibility on mobile devices even better, etc., etc. So that's the basics, but we will also onboard new features and functionalities. The idea is that the application process and ultimately also the delivery process for the PDAs will run through the platform. Yeah? So this will be the interface through which all of this will be done. We will have additional benchmarking elements, and we will also incorporate the learning pages that I spoke about in the context of the knowledge platform onto the platform. So this will evolve over time. It will not all happen overnight. It will be gradual, but you will see the platform being enhanced and being enriched over time. But as I said, it's pretty cool as it is, so please check it out. That's why we put a lot of links into the presentation. Yeah. All right. Now, a brief outlook on the first call for applications for the PDA support, which we plan to run still this year. As mentioned before, this is not carved in stone. The big disclaimer is that this is still under discussion with the JU, both in terms of the concrete process and criteria and also in terms of the timeline. Yeah? So the timeline is preliminary and indicative in that sense. That being said, here's the current thinking. So as mentioned, we would like to run 15 PDAs in this first wave. The exact distribution between light and plus will be determined based on the incoming applications. So there is no set number of PDA lights and PDA plus that we have agreed on going into the process. Yeah? So this is open in that sense. As mentioned, the current thinking is that all projects out there that meet the Valley criteria and are located within the EU and within countries associated to Horizon Europe are eligible in principle. The application will run through the H2 Valley platform. There will be a new dedicated landing page that the colleagues of Inicom are already working on in the background, through which the application process and also the feedback to the applicants will run. And of course, since we're talking about consulting services that are paid for out of public budgets, there will be a transparent, rule-based, and a merit-based process for selecting the beneficiaries of the PDAs. The current thinking is that we will have 4 award criteria based on which the values will be selected: commercial maturity, technical maturity, valley governance and operational maturity, and last but not least, the extent to which the individual valleys contribute to the policy objectives of Repower EU on the one hand, and the Clean Industrial Deal Plan on the other hand, and the rationale provided for the PDA. For the first 3, we want to keep it very simple. Yeah? The idea is not to design crazy forms, big application documents that you need to customize and fill out, but the idea is really to keep this simple and enable you to submit whatever you have. Yeah? In terms of commercial maturity, we are interested in your business plan. You don't have to bring it into a specific format. We want to see what you have. We want to keep it pragmatic. And the same holds for the other 2 criteria. So this is really not about creating a lot of complexity and effort on your end for the application phase. The only thing where we would like you to put down your thoughts and put together a specific rationale and explanation is really the 4th point, where it's about the extent to which your valley actually contributes to these key policy frameworks that are currently driving policy on the EU level, and the rationale for the PDA. And what we mean by that is basically explaining what it is specifically that you want to establish with the PDA, because we want to co-develop this with you, and it would be great if you could go into this process also with a clear idea as to what it is that you would like to get out of this, and where you think you can most benefit from this, and why this is really something that is not yet another support offering, but something that really moves the needle for your valley, yeah, and really moves you in a meaningful way towards FID. And of course, we've talked about accumulation of funding in various different contexts earlier today. Not to reopen this topic, but of course, when rationalizing the PDA, it also one of the things that we would like to see is for you to explain to what extent what you get out of the PDA is really additional to what you might already be getting out of other funding programs, and how it really moves the needle above and beyond what it is that you are already getting. Yeah? So that this is also something that we can assess in the process. Yeah? That being said, we have also sketched a timeline. The current working hypothesis is that we will actually launch the first call for applications already on July 11th. We will hold an info day on July 17th, where I can go into the individual criteria, the technicalities of the application process, the documents that will need to be submitted, etc., in a lot more detail than I can today. The idea is to then basically enable applicants to work on their applications over the summer and be ready to submit their applications by the 20th of September. We will then evaluate the incoming applications, and we would like to be able to get back to the applicants by mid-October with a notification of hopefully award or rejection, and then start delivery of the first wave of PDAs already at the beginning of November in order to be able to get something done on the ground still in 2025, and then of course carry that over into 2026 and have subsequent rounds and calls for applications later in 2026. So that's, in a nutshell, the current thinking about the facility in general and the first call in particular. I'm sure there's quite a few questions. As mentioned, this is not the official info day, but we'll try and take those questions and try to answer them to the best of our knowledge, given where we stand in the process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? John, please. Mike, the mics maybe? We can help.
Nobody to help us with the mics?
No, I can read.
Okay. Even better.
Okay. So can you...
We need to come here.
Yeah. Will the facility be open?
Could you introduce yourself first? Say who you are.
Oh, yeah. John Jordan, Secretary, North Sea, Hydrogen Ports and Maritime Community. Will the facility be open to only EU member states, or will it be open to countries that are eligible under Horizon Europe? And a second question, if I may, when we talk to the concept with our members, one of the first questions will be asked is how much money is available to assist us. So could you answer those two questions?
On the countries, Christopher, and I'll take the second one.
Yes,
Yeah.
so the current thinking is it's going to be EU member states plus countries associated with Horizon Europe. That's the geographical scope in terms of who can apply. And in terms of money available for support, I can't go into the specifics too much. What I can tell you is that for a PDA Plus, in terms of person days that have been set aside for the consulting services for each PDA Plus, we're talking north of 100 person days, both for the commercial topics, so what RB will cover, and for the technical topics, so what Word will cover, as an order of magnitude. Yeah? Per PDA Plus.
Yeah, I mean the total budget for the facility is 12.5 million. That's public for 4 years, and for all three areas.
So it's meaningful.
It's meaningful, and our philosophy why we're here is that the vast majority of this budget will go into the PDAs. So the area one compared to the knowledge portal and the platform, because we are convinced, as I said in my presentation, that every project is different and needs tailored support to advance to FID. But we'll be more transparent on that on the info day. Bradley, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Bradley Ladovig from Luxembourg Hydrogen Valley. I'm very interested in what you said about creating a community of practice, which is like I would love to see that everyone who's participated becomes like a graduate of your PDA program, and that you regularly assemble these people each year so that they can network with each other. It becomes a big talent pool as well for people that might move between different projects. So you mentioned their webinars, lunch and learn kind of thing, but what will you do to create a European-wide community of the people that are involved with hydrogen valleys?
Yes, so that's it. It's really the idea to build exactly that, and that will also be baked into the, for lack of a better term, the collaboration agreement that we will sign with every PDA recipient, beneficiary, however you want to call it, at the outset of each PDA, because the idea is, of course, the beneficiaries will get something out of this. They will get those consulting services basically paid for out of a public budget. But there will be the obligation to then contribute later on to exactly this community. Yeah? So we want to make this mutual in the sense that we really also would like to ask the valleys to then continue to share their learnings, continue to share what they've built, and how they also advance beyond the narrow time period of the PDA delivery, and really turn this into something more permanent. And this will be to a certain degree connected to the knowledge portal, which will be, as I said, openly accessible to a wider community, but we're also planning to put together something that really addresses the narrower community of those who have gone through the PDA, to also create a bit of a more intimate and protected space where these learnings can be exchanged. And of course, given that the whole thing will proceed in waves, this is a community that will grow over time.
And I mean, Bradley, we have a bit of experience with that now from the platform over the last 5 years. And to be very direct, it's not always easy to actually ensure that something comes back. Yeah, and that's some of the more structural and tough discussions we've had with Mirela and her team, is how to really make a deal and ensure also level of accountability. We do not plan to start a actual PDA work of 12, let's say 12 weeks, give or take, for the PDA Plus, unless we have a collaboration agreement signed, unless we have data in our hands, we have a kickoff schedule, and we can actually get to work. And we realize that this is difficult and may face some hard choices at times, but we think it's needed because, again, we will propose a decision to the JU that we think Valley A should receive a PDA Plus and Valley B shouldn't, right? Or at the end of the day. And I think that's important. So we really want to bake this into the collaboration agreement, and then make sure that with the platform and really a series of events that we want to establish, that we can bring the community to life. Yeah? And I think our session this morning was a great start of that already. But the idea is, of course, to make it bigger than just the valleys that are funded by the JU. And really get to the whole community of European integrated project developers, which I said we sent a survey to 120 people that's our long list, or developers. So there's enough projects out there. There is a question here, maybe first in the first row, and then Christian. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Nienke Homan, CEO of Impact Hydrogen, and we organize Hydrogen Valleys. And I'm a little bit worried about the 12 weeks, to be honest, but I hope it's successful. And yeah, can you tell a little bit more on how this relates to the Hydrogen Valley funding? I understand how you mentioned it in one slide. These are two different processes, separated processes, but how can you help getting the funding?
Maybe on the application. So what Christopher said, the one commitment or promise we want to make is we don't want to make this another Horizon Europe call. Yeah, and just from an application point of view, this is not about dispersing millions in CapEx support. This is about essentially consulting support that this facility will offer. So very important to distinguish this. We need to make sure that the valleys that we support, that we understand what they're about and what we are getting ourselves into together, right? So in that sense, there has to be an application process that is clear and transparent and robust, but that is as pragmatic as possible. Yeah, and that's our aspiration. That's what we're working on, and we'll when we publish the call and pitch it on the Info Day, we'll see what the world thinks. Yeah, but that's what we're working on. As to the delivery, sure. I mean, 12 weeks is a challenge, but there's a reason why we want to do it in a time-boxed manner, and Christopher can say more about that.
Thank you. No, I mean, at the end of the day, we are fully aware that 12 weeks is a rather compressed timeline for the scope that we're talking. And we haven't even talked about the 6 weeks for the PDA Lite. So I'm happy to see that everybody's focused on the 12 weeks PDA Plus. No, but joking aside, I think what we will make sure is that all of this is super well prepared. So there will be a baselining and inception period. And this we will not conclude until we think that we have everything in place that we need to be able to deliver this in 12 weeks, in terms of scheduling, in terms of data received, in terms of what we've enshrined in the collaboration agreement, et cetera, et cetera. So, and this happens before the 12 weeks, just to be clear, all of these preparatory steps. So the 12 weeks is the core delivery period. At the end of the day, we still feel like we need to time box this. First of all, it's necessary because otherwise this logic of the waves that build upon each other will not work any longer. And we also think that, really speaking from experience, it's healthy for a project to be time boxed, because then decisions are made, people are available, et cetera, et cetera. We're fully aware it's going to be intense in terms of a compressed timeline, but we've thought it through, and that's the current thinking. And again, there will be an inception phase and a baselining phase with the individual valleys, and then we can discuss how to go about it specifically.
And maybe a last comment. This is also due to the fact that of the overall timeline that Valerie just mentioned. So we want to make sure there's multiple waves, and we learn from one wave to the next. So that's why this is not carved in stone initially, but it's also not carved in stone in the sense that we may want to adjust this. But what we do not want to make it very clear is a year and a half long support where we have no real grip on the project and how they progress, because we're working against an overall policy objective, which is 50 valleys by 2030, and that's pretty much around the corner, right? So that's also the ambition, at least, that we want to, and the spirit that we want to bring to the mission. Christian was next.
I think there was one more.
Sorry, did we miss another part of the question?
I think you asked about the link between the H2 Valley funding that happened in the past and how this will relate to this, right? So not to brush over this and cover it. So the idea is that this is really separate and apart from the Valley funding that has taken place in the past and from the Valley funding that is happening under the most recent call. So this is. This is really a different one. This is really a different one. So the H2 Valley beneficiaries so far, they're not earmarked for this. So this is not a program to just help those. This is really an open call for applications that is specifically also addressing all of the other valleys project developers out there that in principle meet the requirements. Of course, in all transparency, there has been and there is a discussion around the extent to which the existing beneficiaries should also be able to benefit from this. We touched upon this this morning because I think it's a legitimate concern that the JU has, that we want to make sure that additional money is deployed to trigger additional benefits, and we don't want to pour more money into projects that have already received a lot of money when it's not really clear what the additional benefit and the additional scope is. That's why this fourth criterion that I mentioned is so important. I think this is our attempt to somehow fix this, is to make sure that values really properly explain to what extent the support under the PDA would really be additional and on top and yields additional value and utility and therefore justifies additional money being spent. But that's the current thinking.
Yes, Christian Weinberger. Markus, start smiling. Green Hydrogen Development Investment. You asked me for a difficult question.
No, I was joking, Christian.
Never mind.
Go ahead.
Never mind. I think I just two things. First thing, you say 15 projects for the first round. If I count, do a bit of arithmetic, 35 projects have been submitted for this round of Hydrogen Valleys. Maximum 10 will win support, maybe 12. So I know already that the 15 candidates will be well prepared for the call that you do. So I think you will have probably very well structured and qualified applicants for the first round. And I think actually the 12 weeks will be quite a good scope also to get them ready for the next round of submission. So I think concept is well thought through and looks fine. As a comment, maybe you should keep a number of mandates for a 12 months after exercise to say, okay, project has been advised. What happens in the 12 months? What of the things that have been achieved, have been performed, or has been agreed, have been achieved, and what could still be advised to go further? But now to my question. I'm not talking about application to the Valley funding. That's, of course, something that logically comes out of the process. But in your 4 dimensions, which are very valuable, you list commercial as one of them, which to me is just to get the basic commercial figures on a piece of paper. So this is my cost, this is reasonably what I can achieve and in terms of revenues and so on. But as we know, there's a big gap there. Usually 20% is the funding. So I think it will be important still to consider and assist valleys in how to secure the other 80%. Maybe by just talking about sources that are there, but that's usually not enough, but also by guiding them and making them investment ready. Because investors are there, but investors are skeptical. So an important element could also be to, or should be actually, to make these projects investment ready and try to assist them in pitching to investors. Because in the end, many of the projects that we have today fail, or at least a significant number of partners drop out because they don't find the extra funding. So for the success of the valleys, this will be also an important dimension in my opinion. What do you plan there?
Yeah, this is a tough nut to crack for sure. I think let me start from I think speaking now for the PDA Plus, as Christopher outlined, we plan to do a baselining and gap analysis that is fairly standard for each project, but then have used the majority of the support for individual support, which is, let's say, jointly selected from the menu of things. You see here some examples. So I think coming up with a full funding, first of all, with challenging the business case and the total capex spend, so what you have to fund and finance to get the project going, and also looking at the OPEX and the full business case, that's definitely part of it. And I think it has to start with that. And of course, we know from our line of work, and so does Nicola and her teams, that there is still enough fantasy numbers out there flying around, especially in pre-feasibility stages. So I think this is the starting point. And then there's the second element, is the sources of funds and funding and financing, which we will also address. And this is, in the public funding space, to our experience, very much a mapping exercise. And then, and where, we also have it as part of a concept that we team up with local experts within the member states, if needed, and we can access through our networks also the insights of, let's say, especially using national funding in addition to European funding. And then, of course, linking the two. What I'm going to be very clear about is we cannot achieve the impossible of making a project bankable and investable where you have a willingness to pay for green hydrogen of €5, but a landed price of €12. I can't solve that €7 per kilogram gap just by doing magic in Excel that no one else ever thought of, right? But what we can say is what it takes to make the project investable. And that is bridging that gap as a mix of increasing willingness to pay and closing the gap from the funding side. Yeah, I hope I'm being very clear, and of course also challenging potentially the concept in the beginning, whether focusing on the €5 per kilogram application willingness to pay is really the right thing to do first, or whether there's other applications with higher willingness to pay and first movers that you should rather turn to. And to our experience, these types of conversations is really what defines the initial probabilities of success of a different project. Yeah? So that's definitely our aspiration to do as part of the bucket. I think in the PDA Lite, those trade-offs and fundamentals will be pretty similar structurally. And we also hope to learn from, let's say, one valley that is more mobility focused to another and really connect the dots. In the PDA Pluses, it will be even more specific, but it's ultimately the same principle and aspiration that we have. It's going to be a core of the work. I mean, that's why most projects are stuck, Christian. I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah. There's more questions. Nigel, yes, please. And then all the way in the back there, I've seen you. Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's a great suggestion, and so the support from the Clean Hydrogen Partnership is very welcome. So, I'm so sorry. Nigel Holmes, Hydrogen Scotland. We were involved with the Big Hit project at the very start. So, the question about the PDA. You talk about the workshops, the lunch and learn sessions. Are those just going to be for the people who've been selected for the PDA, or are they open to others to actually take part? Because it sounds like there could be some really valuable resources there, which would actually help the whole community to move forward. And as suggested, is about creating that community.
Yes. So two things. In principle, what we have now called the H2 Valley Knowledge Platform will be more or less public. Yeah? So the idea is really to make both the tools and the knowledge materials on the one hand, but also the online events open and accessible to anyone out there who would like to attend. Yeah? So in that sense, it's of course also about having a transfer of learnings and insights coming out of the PDAs and out of the projects that are beneficiaries of the PDAs into that wider community. And then as a separate and additional thing, to have a more tightly knit community between the PDA beneficiaries. But those are not meant to be silos. Yeah? So really we want to make sure that knowledge, insights, lessons learned flow out of the PDAs into that wider community that consists of projects and valleys that did not directly benefit from a dedicated PDA. Yeah.
That's great. And a related question. How does this map onto the HTP activities, the Hydrogen Territories platform? Is there an opportunity there to align both of them together?
I have to measure this. Way too many platforms and websites and what. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. You need to help me. We're going to try to reinvent the wheel as little as we can. But you need to help me. Which one is that? Which platform?
The Aragon Hydrogen Foundation and the Big Hit, Green Highland, Heaven. The Hydrogen Territories platform was a joint activity between those early projects, and it's still being supported by the Aragon Hydrogen Foundation.
I think I had this. We had this revelation, epiphany this morning, that really in all of the funding that's happening from the JU to the 21 valleys, there's always a lessons learned dissemination. What can we take away from this type of element in there, right? So that's part of every grant agreement that the JU signs. So naturally, we're going to try to harvest and collect as much of that and any of that as we can. We tried to do it in the past with the Valley platform, where our approach was not to say we have to reinvent every LCOH calculation tool or reinvent every business case tool or rewrite every paper or study that has been written on the pros and cons of different electrolyzer technologies. It's about channeling, collecting, aggregating what's there, and I would say the same applies to all the lessons learned, the dissemination, the results that have been done in the hydrogen valleys. Again, our objective would be to be very cautious and clear in the selection. I always like to joke that a typical slide in clean hydrogen that I produce doesn't last longer than 6 months. Usually it's 3. So because it's an incredibly dynamic sector, right? So I'm not going back to my models from 5 years ago. So in that sense, we'll scrutinize it. We'll quality test it where necessary, and then we're going to collect it and put it together. So that's that's how we're going to proceed with all the existing platforms and materials that we have.
Brilliant.
Next
That's great.
question
Thank you.
is in the back there. Oh, and last one. Okay.
Hi there, Josh Williamson, High Energy Consultancy. We have
Two more.
written and participate within, well, stand up so we can see, 5 hydrogen valleys that have been successfully awarded. I did have the same question about the financing from the private side, but thanks for answering that. I guess the other thing is that most people are in the room because either they have been awarded funding via a hydrogen valley or have applied for a hydrogen valley. Is the preference that this supports the new delta between the 25 we have already and the 50 target, or is there a sort of a preference for those that you're already aware of from the Clean Hydrogen Partnerships perspective, from those that have been engaged with the funding already, potentially through the STEP seal, for instance, to say that that valley will then be given extra additional points, for instance, or is it really just a level playing field for all potential valleys as long as they're not starting at step 0, basically?
Exactly. So, exactly. You pretty much answered the question. There's no preference. As we learned this morning from the 21 valleys, plenty of them we haven't taken FID yet. Right, so that's the discussion we've had. It's final details to be determined, but it's the 50 construction or operational is the goal, and I hope we can build on as many of the existing ones in case they still need additional support, as Christopher outlined. Yeah. That's the threshold. The point is not that that anyone gets a second opinion from Wally whether the hydrogen refueling station was sized right or wrong. Yeah, that's not the point. The point is to do something new and additional with RB, with Wally, and that's it. And I think that is our metric of success ultimately, and where the applications and sources and whatnot come from. Honestly, we don't really care as long as we have enough and good ones that we think we can help to take to the next level. Final question?
Yeah. Really? You want another
there
one?
was another one. Lady,
she's been waiting for
she's been waiting for some time. Yeah, we'll be super brief.
I'm thirsty.
Yeah. Is there a microphone for? Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, Mirella. So I'm Laurence Green-Clement. I'm, let's say I represent a software editor that is specialized for hydrogen supply chains. I think there is a great emphasis on offtake, but the challenge that I see the most now is on structuring power sourcing, because I guess we're talking about green hydrogen valleys that will enter RED 2 2029, where you need hourly reconciliation. We are in Europe where PPAs are something relatively new, with PPA structures that are still evolving. So being able to put a price and an availability on power for green hydrogen valleys is truly an evolving challenge. And I didn't see a specific box in what you present, and just to understand to what extent you will be supporting valleys in that sense, or do you consider that is something even beyond? At least for me, what I see would benefit European valleys is having a view on the evolution of PPAs, the evolution of spot prices, because what I see is green hydrogen is often spot, apex spot based structured. So having power forward curves that can be shared would be of interest. So yeah, just asking about what's going to be done in that direction.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we all know, depending on the exact configuration, the cost of electricity is somewhere between 50 and 70% of the levelized cost of hydrogen. Yeah, so it's the make or break factor for the business case. Yeah, there's no way you can save enough money on the capex to make up for a subpar electricity sourcing concept. Yeah, so it's very important, and it's something that sits at the interface of the commercial and the technical. Yeah, there's a technical component to it. which is the sizing of the dedicated renewables, if you have them in the project, versus how much you get out of the grid, versus what the grid capacity is, etc., etc. And there's the commercial component to it, which is which is basically about how much of it is spot, how much of it do you source via PPAs, how are the PPAs structured, etc., etc. So I think we had it on the slides. It's a core component of the business case, and it's my prediction would be that in all of the projects that will receive a PDA, this will actually be a substantial part of the work because it's so important for the viability of the overall business case. Yeah, so fully agreed.
Okay.
I hate to stop that.
We have the info.
But yeah, indeed. Yeah, thank you. But indeed, happy that we've been able to give a flavor of what's coming in the next 4 years and really trust we will be able to do it. I trust that. Now, do not hesitate to continue, talking to Roland Berger experts, to ourselves, and here I have to mention Antonio. Antonio, you will see him tomorrow, but I have to mention him. He is my Hydrogen Valley brain, part of the brain, and I could not do it without you. And yes, don't hesitate also to talk to him. And now you know all of us, so we really would like to invite you to the networking. Now we have some drinks, some moose bush, I guess, appetizer, something. I don't know. We will be surprised. I was told to announce you all that it's in the lobby bar area, so it's not here. It's we got a bit further down, and I hope you will enjoy it and don't hesitate to continue talking about that. And hope to see you also here tomorrow, despite the strike. I will make sure I'm here. So enjoy the networking, and thank you very much.